Hey everyone, it's William Moore, and you're watching Beyond the Ties That Bind. I pray that everybody's having as good of a day as you can possibly have. I've had a pretty good day today, considering that I've been on the phone most of the day with TechSmith concerning my video editing software. A few of the last videos, maybe those who have watched them all the way through, may have noticed that the audio and video is off. Now, that's not that big of a deal since I have my video reduced into a small square at the bottom of the screen, but it still ticks me off. So, trying to work out that bug, and then also on the phone with Dell Tech Support, trying to get some software downloaded that was supposed to come with the computer to make video editing that much smoother. So, nothing anymore can just come out of the box ready to go. Hopefully, this video will come off without a hitch. We've not worked out all the bugs yet, but working on it. So, I want to start out with a quote from James Madison, not one of my favorite guys, but the quote's good. If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a, he said foreign, but we have crossed that out and put invisible enemy. If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting an invisible enemy. And that's what we have going on right now with the BOLOGNAvirus. We are fighting an invisible enemy that no one knows if this enemy even exists, because we have not been able to isolate or identify the strain of the virus known as BOLOGNAvirus 2019. So, also want to read a quote, and this is a very good quote. It tells us what's going on right now. The conscious, intelligent manipulation of the organized opinions and habits of the masses is an important element in a democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power in our society. Now, how do they do this? How do they manipulate the opinions and habits of the masses? Well, most people sit 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day in front of the television, and the television brainwashes them to conform, to believe something that they might not necessarily believe otherwise. So that's what's going on right now in America. People are being manipulated. They're being manipulated to believe that there's a virus which exists that could wipe out mankind, that could cause a pandemic of biblical proportions. Now, we know that's bunk. The numbers are telling us different, yet they're still going through with this plan. Why? Because people are brainwashed to believe, even though we do not have a pandemic, even though the numbers do not state we have one, people are still buying into the lie. And I have no idea why. Now, for those of you who have always dreamed of being a NARC, but maybe you only had a GED. You didn't even have your high school diploma. You didn't have any kind of associate's degree in criminology. You didn't have any courses in criminal justice under your belt. So therefore, you were not able to follow your life's passion of becoming an NARC. Or maybe you just didn't have the balls enough to play with the big boys. Well, has the government got an opportunity for you? That's right. You can now be a NARC in the form of a contact tracer. That's correct, ladies and gentlemen. We have contact tracers being hired in St. Louis County, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri here, another one in Kansas City, Missouri, Bowling Green, Kentucky, if you just want to have more of a rural setting. Then you have Henderson, Kentucky, Clinton, Iowa, Danville, Illinois, Murray, Kentucky. So if you want to be a contact tracer and NARC on people, and you do not have a degree in criminal justice, an associate's degree in criminology, the government now has an opportunity for you to be a NARC. That's right. The government is going to help you make your dreams come true. So I think their program is going to be called NARC on Your Neighbor, or NARC a Neighbor. So, yes, it's true. They are hiring people, and the aim of the contact tracing team will be to interview persons identified as household or non-household close contacts to confirmed or probable cases of BOLOGNAvirus. Contact tracing interviews will consist of staff using a web-based client resource management platform to assist with ascertaining contact symptoms and risks, gathering further information on exposure, providing guidance on minimizing their risk of potential transmission, explaining the contact's quarantine responsibility, and details and processes for contact monitoring. These efforts will lead to more targeted testing, improved communication with individuals in the community, a more successful implementation of quarantine, and ultimately, better control of the pandemic in St. Louis County. So there you have it. However, it says right here that they're going to be using a client resource management platform to assist with ascertaining contact symptoms and risk, gathering further information on exposure. But exposure to what? I mean, so far, according to Cox postulates, we have not identified the disease yet. We have not identified, we have not isolated. Number one, the microorganism must be found in abundance in all organisms suffering from the disease, but should not be found in healthy organisms. The microorganism must be isolated from the diseased organism and grown in a pure culture, which means grown outside of Washington, D.C. The cultured microorganism should cause disease when introduced into a healthy organism. The microorganism must be re-isolated from the inoculated diseased experimental host and identified as being identical to the original specific causative agent. Isolated, identified, reintroduced. Has not happened yet. So we have contact tracers being hired. Have you lost your job in the latest banker engineered depression? Well, there's good news for you. Consider becoming a contact tracer. That's right.
Success in the fight against the coronavirus may depend in part on two things: learning who has the disease and who could get it. Health officials use a method called contact tracing to find out who infected patients may have met. Our national correspondent Jerika Duncan is in New York. Jerika, how is this effort being stepped up?
Well, good morning to you, Anthony. What's happening right now is that we're seeing city, county, and state health departments that are coordinating this effort. But what we're also seeing is that these health departments are actually expanding their rosters of tracers. This happening at the same time that some of the world's biggest tech companies are helping.
What date did you start to feel like you had some kind of symptoms?
In Salt Lake County, which has more than half of Utah's 3,000 plus COVID cases, there are...
I just noticed the person on the phone there. What day did you start noticing that you had felt like you were having symptoms? Do you know how many hypochondriacs there are in America? People who just love, who just thrive on going to the doctor. I mean, they're going to eat this up. They're going to love this. But this is all still an attack on freedom. You cannot have something like this. People being invasive, people, disrupting your daily life, and people not respecting your privacy, and still say that we're maintaining any type of freedom at all. We're not. These people, you have people narking on others, and now you're going to have phone apps keeping track of who you come in contact with. Let's go on.
Aggressively stepping up contact tracing.
We know it's important to not just know who the positive case is, but who in an infectious disease, who they have been in contact with.
Gary Edwards is executive director of Salt Lake County Health Department. Are you testing the people in that house as well when you identify someone who has tested positive for COVID-19?
If it is a household, we do want those family members tested. Yes, because that has been especially close contact.
In contact tracing, a person who tests positive tells the health department who they've been in contact with. The health department then alerts those people and asks them to monitor their symptoms and to quarantine if needed. And it's happening across the country.
Quarantine, house arrest.
I asked you all to start keeping a daily log.
Rhode Island's governor asked everyone in the state to keep a personal log of whom they've encountered. Massachusetts is investing $44 million to hire and train more tracers.
Keeping a daily log of who you have come in contact with. Okay, so you're walking around Walmart and you've got your pen and paper. Excuse me, what's your name, please? Okay. Right then, thank you very much. Excuse me, cashier, what's your name? Okay, thank you very much. Walking out the door, people come in your contact, your path. Excuse me, sir, I'm supposed to keep a log. The governor wants me to keep a log, wants me to know what your name is. Oh, that's a really wild name. How do you spell that? F-U-C, and the last name is O-F-F? Okay, thank you. All right. Have a great day. This is crazy. It's almost time to go live in a cave somewhere to escape this insane society. The inmates are running the asylum, and the rest of the asylum is fine with it.
So here I have the list of my contacts.
And in San Francisco, with more than 1,000 cases and at least 20 deaths, healthcare officials use text messaging to communicate with people who've tested positive and their close contacts most at risk.
For every new case, there are 3 to 5 close contacts.
Dr. Mike Reed is with the San Francisco Department of Public Health. They're calling on everyone from medical students to librarians to help them with contact tracing.
The reason for training people now is so that we're ready in 3, 4, 5 weeks' time whenever the decision is made that we'll end the shelter in place.
Tech companies are also preparing. Apple and...
So we're going to go from sheltering in place to NARCing, contact tracing. And these are phases. These are phases that they are implementing and they're conditioning people to get ready for. This is absolute mayhem.
And Google recently announced a joint plan to create software for iPhones and Androids that will allow them to keep a record of every other phone they've come in close contact with. The tracking is voluntary.
Your phone will know what other phones you have been near for a period of time.
Now, if this software, this application on your phone, will be able to know who you've been in contact with, this application, I'm sure there's applications on people's phones already that do this, but they will be able to mine your phone for data. Any type of data that you have on your phone, whether it be pictures, whether it be bank account information, whether it be personal letters, anything like that, or personal text messages. Nobody writes letters anymore. So all of that's going to be susceptible to this type of app. I mean, that's just my thoughts on this. If they're going to have an app that's going to be able to communicate between phones, and if somebody has an app which is communicating with another app, what's to say that one phone will not data mine another phone and be able to send that information, and then someone else has your information? You don't even know about it. Maybe it's going to work through the Google system to where you don't even need the app, and all you have to do is be logged into Gmail or logged into Google Photos, and the other phone can identify your phone and possibly data mine then. I mean, this is dangerous stuff as far as privacy is concerned.
You, let's say, test positive and you alert the system, it will go and find all of the phones that you have been near over the last 14 days.
Dan Ackerman is senior managing editor for CNET.
Of course, there are a lot of issues with that. Just because your phone is within Bluetooth range of another phone doesn't mean that you were necessarily in communicable disease range of somebody.
Americans love their apps, but they also love their privacy.
When we think about tracking and tracing, all the news of the last several years has been negative. And now they're trying to shift it into being something for a greater public good. It may be a hard sell.
Now,
I do not feel that it's going to be a hard sell. Look outside right now, and how many people are walking around with masks on will not get within 8 feet of you. People telling you to stay away from them. So I don't think this is going to be a hard sell at all. Once again, we're at problem, reaction, solution. The problem scares people. The reaction is the fear. And then, of course, the government comes up with the solution. Since they were so afraid of this invisible virus, then they jump upon the solution bandwagon. I don't see this being a hard sell at all. People have been conditioned to give up privacy in this age anyway, but they're conditioned to do anything that the news media and the government tells them to do anymore. I don't see many people except older generations questioning this. It's probably time to start ditching the smartphones and going back to the flip phones, or just ditching the cell phone altogether.
Smartphone to trace this virus is already happening in places like South Korea and Singapore, but there it is mandatory. And something else worth mentioning, Anthony, is that these contact tracers will not ask for information regarding your social security number, your financial information, and they will not ask about your immigration status.
Yeah,
I am so glad they're not going to ask me about my immigration status. Okay, so contact tracing. You have California is readying an army. The Newsom administration, or the gruesome administration, has teamed up with 2 universities to train more than 3,000 employees per week to become BOLOGNAvirus detectives. Look, right there. If you've always wanted to be an NARC, if you've always wanted to be in flaw enforcement, the government has created an opportunity for you. Tracing the spread of the disease throughout California. So they're going to be tracing Mr. Newsom everywhere he goes throughout California. Starting Wednesday, the University of California, Los Angeles and the University of California, San Francisco will provide 20 hours of online and in-person training to state employees selected for the program. The new training academy, as Governor Gavin Newsom called it, is part of an effort to build an army of 20,000 people to test, trace, and isolate people who may have been infected. In addition, this new statewide database will help local health departments trace infected people and their contacts as they travel through the state. So they're going to know where you are at all times. This is 1984 on steroids, people. So we have some people who are very excited about the innovation. I told you it's not going to be hard sell. There are only about 15% of us out there who are going to say no to the testing and the vaccinations. 15%. Now, it doesn't take a majority to prevail. It did not take a majority to prevail, even though I disagree with the war for independence, what came forth out of the war for independence, and a lot of the actions of the government after the war for independence in 1776. It only took 15% of the population to win that conflict. So anyway, this is not going to be a hard sell, people. There's going to be very few of us left that take a stand against this. And that's kind of scary. So what exactly, I mean, from the officials, what exactly is contact tracing? Well, we've gone over this before. The key concepts: trace and monitor contacts of infected people. Well, my question is still, how do we know that they're infected? We don't. Okay. So, support the quarantine of contacts. Support isolation, house arrest. Help ensure the safe, sustainable, and effective quarantine of contacts to prevent additional transmission. Okay. I ask again, transmission of what? Expand staffing resources. Contact tracing in the U.S. will require that states, tribes, localities, and territorial establish large cadres of contact tracers. Large cadres. They're going to be everywhere. I mean, it's going to be like the movie They Live. It really is. To where if you see some type of suspected activity, person's going to be on their watch. They're going to be speaking into their little earbud, their little Bluetooth, saying, I got somebody. They're not social distancing. They just sneezed. They coughed. Use digital tools. Adoption and evaluation of digital tools may expand reach and, I love this word when the government uses this, efficacy of contact tracers. It's coming, people. It's here. And here we go. Here's Gavin Gruesome.
The capacity to test leads to the capacity to trace, and I just want to update you on that. We believe by tomorrow or the next day, certainly by the end of this week, the first cohort of those that we're training through UCSF and UCLA and the new virtual protocols for contact tracing in the state of California. That first cohort will be trained, and we're starting to recruit the next cohort. Again, this is foundational testing, and then the ability to trace. You got to have a tracing workforce to do that. That then begins the protocols of isolating and, to the extent necessary, quarantine individuals that have tested positive or have potentially been exposed. So progress in that space as well. All of these dots, all of these indicators connected to one another, and again, moving in the direction that we were hoping at this stage.
So, back at this webpage here, program manager, $35 to $40 an hour. Temporary now, with all of this hiring going on, this temporary jobs at this rate, how are they going to be able to hire people for their census? So we have temporary contract managers and okay, this must have been somebody in the government who typed this out, because this looks like a typo. Instead of contact They have contract. Instead of managers, they have manages. Anyway, so we have, I mean, we're talking $35 to $40 an hour. Now, in a climate right now where we have a lot of people out of work, there's going to be people clamoring for these jobs. And they're going to go through special training, instruction. And in this training and this instruction, what they're going to do is they are going to condition them to think it's okay to invade someone's privacy. And that's exactly what they're going to do. This is what the government's been doing in corporations with a lot of these programs that they've had, as far as sexual harassment, as far as, you know, inclusiveness, all of the inclusive training that they've been going through. And they can condition you to think in a manner that you normally would not think in, unless you're somebody who's on top of it. Now, I used to get in a lot of trouble when we had classes like this because as far as the inclusive training, you know, now, I have no problem with a person who is different, but if you're different, stay in the closet and don't try and recruit or tell me how normal you are. Okay, so anyway, but most people can be conditioned. They can be conditioned to the point to where they will see nothing wrong with invading the privacy of another person or turning another person in that will then possibly be quarantined. Now, here's the most troubling thing, and this was sent to me by one of my friends on Facebook. This one is very troubling, and I wanted to save this for last. DCYF is seeking current DCYF employees in King, Snohomish, and Benton counties to volunteer to supervise and support children and youth in emergency quarantine centers. Okay, we've been told that children and youth are immune from the BOLOGNAvirus. So this means that they are being separated from someone who has the BOLOGNAvirus or is suspected to have or claimed to have the BOLOGNAvirus. So they're going to volunteer to supervise and support children and youth in emergency quarantine centers. While this is a voluntary effort, you will be compensated for ranges approximately 20% above your current base salary while performing these duties, and return to your normal position and salary once concluded, if that's ever concluded. We are looking for current DCYF Social Service Specialist 3s to care for children who are either BOLOGNAvirus positive or who may have been exposed, right there, to BOLOGNAvirus. There are 3 locations, and that gives the locations in Washington. So people in Washington, the state of Washington is coming for your children. This is very troubling. We've heard about this, and you know, there was a letter going out, which was a fake letter. It was just something that someone started, but now we have something here that shows us that this is part of their agenda. They're going to be separating families. In Missouri, they call it the Division of Family Services, and they couldn't have picked a better name, Division of Family. And here we have in the state of Washington to where they're going to do this. And Washington seems to be a testing ground. It was definitely a testing ground in the United States for the beginning of the BOLOGNAvirus. So anyway, you can either have a government job to be a babysitter for some child that's been taken away from their parents. Wouldn't that just be a wonderful job to have? Or you can, in Las Vegas, be a contact tracer, remote opportunity. They're only paying $17 an hour. So, I mean, I could make a lot more money in Vegas being a stripper than 17. Maybe not. Okay. So, you know, you gotta keep somewhat lighthearted, people, or you'll go insane with all of this. Here is the latest on the fear porn map. I want to just show you here. We have total confirmed 1,381,696 cases. 1,381,696 cases. Now, that's what they say confirmed. This is PCR testing, and once again, PCR testing, it doesn't cut it. It is not able to identify, isolate, be reintroduced. So, they say it's about really half of this number that has even gone to the doctor or been hospitalized. Last year, you had seasonal influenza responsible for the hospitalization of over 1 million people. You had the seasonal influenza, which was responsible for over 80,000 deaths. And this number here, we're told by Deborah Birx and others that if a person dies with the BOLOGNAvirus, even if the underlying cause of death was cardiac arrest, cancer, leukemia, pneumonia, if they had this virus, which we all have viruses present in our body at any time, but if they had the virus, then they're going to be counted in the number with other BOLOGNAvirus deaths. It's going to go for the BOLOGNAvirus death rate. Now, this is something right here that's still a little bit, suspect. They're getting their numbers from the WHO, Roger Daltrey, Peter Townsend, John Entwistle, and Keith Moon, and the Center for Disease Control. Now, provisional death count updated May 13th. They're saying here about 30,000 less than this number. So what's going on? The CDC is saying in America, we've had this many. John Hopkins Faux News fear porn map states that it's this number, something going on. Then you still have pneumonia, which has 24,500 something more deaths than this. So where is the fear concerning pneumonia? And then what is even more interesting is you have the lowest seasonal influenza death rate that I have ever seen. Now, if you would take this and add it to this, you've got about, you've definitely got 60,000. And which brings it to an average seasonal influenza death rate. So, the numbers that disappeared from here, could they possibly have wound up here? Okay, so I believe that the agenda is going forward. We're going from shelter in place to contact tracing, and I believe that we're going to go back to a shelter in place sometime in the fall. Also, the economy, we haven't seen anything yet, and I'm going to start covering a little bit more what the National Guard's doing with the food supply, because that's very interesting as well. Anyway, people, hang on. Stay strong. Stay in the belief. Be confident. Be confident in the ability of freedom to prevail, because freedom will prevail. And as I stated, a lot of people are going around saying, well, this is unconstitutional. You know what? To heck with the Constitution. You know, like I stated, freedom doesn't need a piece of paper to defend it, doesn't need a government to defend it or protect it. Freedom's within your heart, it's within your mind. And that, when you have people who hold freedom dear, and freedom is within their heart and mind, they cannot and will not be manipulated, and they will win. Freedom is more than something imaginary to them. So anyway, until next time, this is William Moore for Beyond the Ties That Bind. Thanks for joining me. Peace.